Thank you guys for joining us today. Oops Proof is a series that we created in response to the question, how can we help singers in our community, especially coming out of this pandemic? And I am so excited to have Jenna Wolf with us here today. She is the Publicity and Digital Media Manager at Lenny Studio, which is a renowned female-founded international public relations and digital firm. Check out their website after this session to see some of the incredible artists that they've worked with. And also, Jenna has started a nonprofit called Opera for Peace. So you should give them a check out as well. But she is just the most amazing woman. And as everyone knows today, singing is not just on the stage, it's also on the internet. And I don't know how to do that, even though Tina and I started a nonprofit. So personally, I'm so excited that Jenna is here. And I hope that we can all leave this session with an actionable plan for how to upgrade our personal branding on the internet. So Jenna Wolf, thank you for being here. Take it away.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. It's so great to meet all of you. Is everybody joining from, let's say, the Twin Cities, Minnesota area, or do we have anybody from outside of that area? Everybody kind of around. Okay, good. So I actually first met Sienna in Minnesota. I was on staff at Minnesota Opera for several years, and she was in the resident artist program there. So that's where we first connected, and it's just been so great to see what she and of course Christina have been up to during this really insane, ridiculous pandemic time of finding a way to sort of support their fellow singers, their colleagues in creative ways. And I think we're all trying to find a way to do this in the industry, striking that balance between supporting each other while still trying to support ourselves and keep ourselves afloat, keep ourselves going, keep ourselves working. So it's just nice to connect with all of you. As Sienna said, the offstage presence is a bit more of my specialty. I'm not a singer. Nobody needs to hear that from me. I'm an instrumentalist by trade, but I'm singer adjacent, being married to a singer. So I have at least a bit of experience being connected in that way. And I also work with a lot of artists in the various jobs that I do. Like most people in the arts world, I don't just have one gig, I have many, but I've found a way to sort of bring them all together really in an atmosphere in my life that sort of suits me and inspires me. And a lot of the work connects with itself and connects with each other. So it's very cool. I do have, and I can do a screen share at a certain point, but I do have sort of a presentation that I can run through a bit that has some milestones, but I actually am gonna kind of do this in more of a conversational manner to start. And then I'll get into some more of the detailed information. And then at the end, I'm very happy to answer questions, or because we're sort of a nice intimate group, if you have questions along the way, just raise a hand and I'll be very happy to call on you and answer your question if you have it along the way and you're worried you're going to forget it. Otherwise, we'll hopefully cover it at the end. But I find that in a lot of these seminars or a lot of these conversations, the Q&A is actually the most helpful for people, because that's maybe my opportunity to give you some advice or some thoughts that are more specific to you rather than just the general information. But we'll kind of start from the beginning. How many people on this call, and you can just literally physically raise your hand, how many people on this call have their own website at this point, their own artist website? Okay. How many of you have artist social media channels? So social media channels specifically for you as an artist. All right. How about YouTube channel, a dedicated YouTube channel just for your, okay. Interesting. So those things that I just listed off, I wish I could say in this industry are not vitally important, because I would love for everything to just be 100% about what you do on stage, 100% about your voice and your preparation and your technique and your tenacity and your talent. But we are now in a time where your presence online is vitally important. And I say this because I actually have been doing some casting for various projects. It's some things that I do on the side. And if I'm told about a singer who I haven't had the good fortune to hear in person before, the first thing I'm doing is hopping on the internet and seeing if I can find some videos of them, seeing what their work experience is, especially if it's somebody that comes out of the blue. And if it's impossible for me to find any content on that singer, and if nothing's been provided to me, and also, if I've asked some colleagues, but they haven't had the chance to hear or work with the singer either, it's very difficult to paint a picture of who that person is. And this is not only for singers, this is true for conductors, for stage directors, for anybody else in the business. If you don't have examples of your work living online, if you don't have sort of a profile of who you are living online, it's very difficult for us to find you or to be introduced to you, even if someone does their best to try to bring you sort of in front of our eyes. So I want to talk today through sort of those pillars of your online presence and why it's important to have them. What are some sort of quick, user-friendly, cheap and easy ways to do all of this? I'm going to preface all of that with the fact that regardless of where you are in your career, you should never be at a point that you're basically spending a ton of your money, most of what you're making, on things like website management or publicity or any of that. That should all come at a point in your career where that income is essentially disposable. Now, it's tax deductible and that's great, but really, if you're in sort of the emerging development phase of your career, everything you do should be free or low cost. It should be things you do yourself on your own time, or if it's very low cost, if you have, some friends that can help you out with that, that's great. But until you sort of have that full-time established career where you're already paying your rent or your mortgage, your health insurance, your therapy bills, your lesson for your lessons, for your coachings, for your language coachings, for, all of this stuff, until you're at that point, and then you've been saving too for rainy day times like COVID times, and then you still have something left over, then okay, if you really feel that you're at that point, great. But if not, don't spend that money. Save that money, spend it on things that are going to more quickly move you forward in your career, because there's a lot that you can do, again, for free or for low cost to start. And I've seen some emerging artists who have, maybe they got a huge grant from the Young Artist program that they were in, and they spent the whole amount of money on a website. And I'm like, oh my God, you could have spent half of that, and half of that could have bought some plane tickets for auditions, or, so these are things that may seem practical to a lot of you, but it's easy sort of at the time when you maybe have some money come your way, or from competition winnings and things like that, to sort of throw it at that, because we, in many areas of the industry, sort of have FOMO. Like, you worry about the fact that, oh, this artist seems to have this, or I really wish I could have that, but I think this is the time to be practical, and there are fun ways you can do this. So let's talk about the website a little bit, because I noticed not all of you have artist websites. You all should. Not a question. This is vitally important. This is something you'll have to spend at least a little bit of money on, just to get your domain name saved. And, if your name's already taken, your first name, last name, you can always add your FOC at the end, Sienna for soprano, that kind of thing. But it's really vitally important to have a website. And I can't stress this enough, because that's the one-stop shop. That's the place people like myself go to find as much as we can about you in as short of an amount of time as possible. I do know some colleagues of mine that, they quickly go to YouTube or this or that. I like the whole picture of people, because if I can see your resume there, or your CV there, and the list of your repertoire, who you studied with, the programs you've been in, languages you speak, coaches you've worked with, all of those kind of things, that's going to help me start to get a picture of you. If I'm good friends with a conductor you've worked with before, then I'm comfortable reaching out to that person and saying, hey, I see that you're on their resume. Can you tell me a little bit about this artist? So if that's living on your website, it's easy to find. If some video clips are living on your website, that's easy to find. Video has become really paramount during this time, more than it should be. I wish it were less. In-person auditions, to me, are still the gold standard, but as we know, this is changing. And especially with travel restrictions and everything else, everybody's going to need good quality videos, and not just for this time. This is going to be sort of forever and ever in the future going forward. Not everyone can afford some incredible recording studio or incredible venue. And I know actually that Sienna and Christina have sort of a good hookup there in the cities if you haven't taken advantage of what they know of and have to offer already. We can talk about that at the end. But there are really reasonable options and opportunities for you to have a decent space, for you to have good recordings done and to get those up online. It ideally not be in your living room, because more than likely, unless you have 14-foot ceilings and a massive space, the quality is not going to be exceptional. You want a good size space. You want to make sure you can have maybe at least a couple of microphones, or if you only have one, that you give that some distance. Make sure to give a sense of the size and breadth of your voice, so we can also hear some overtones, because the closer the mic gets, the tougher some of that becomes. And I know some of you have had to make recordings on iPhones during this time too, and that's very difficult because it's not going to show all the best parts of your voice, but you do what you have to do. I think even more than anything, almost more than the technology, having a space is really important. So again, that's something, if you have absolutely no budget in the world, maybe a church in your hometown or somewhere, that's somewhere you can record, and maybe you've got a buddy with a decent video camera and you get a used mic off eBay, or there are things that you can figure out. If you're fortunate enough to have a budget, of course you can rent a nicer space, maybe something that has built-in mics and all of that. But those videos are really important, and getting those videos up on a YouTube channel that has curated playlists of what you sing is also great. If you have a video from a program you did that was awesome, if you sang a role and felt great about it, excerpt one of the arias, as long as it's okay permissions wise from the program, put that on there. But most websites that you can do for really low cost these days, be they on Squarespace or Wix, any of this kind of stuff, you can actually embed YouTube videos usually on those types of sites. And then again, people like me, when I'm going to see that, I'm seeing your resume and CV, I'm seeing those video clips, I may be getting to listen to a few SoundCloud clips of you, because maybe you have some audio recordings that are really solid, but they just never came with the video, or the video camera wasn't working at the program that day, but the audio was captured. I know this has happened. That's not lost. Like, please know that the audio still may be valuable to you. And if you feel great about that, if your teacher and your coaches feel great about the quality of your singing in that, be it audio or video, please put that out there. But make sure that it represents you now. If it's from 5 years ago and you're in completely different repertoire now, that's not serving you. Or if you're studying with a new teacher now and you have a very different technical approach, it's time for new content. This has to be a capture and a vision of you, who you are as an artist right now on your website. You'll have some photos. You can load some photos up there, some recent portraits. If you have some stage images too, please do that. Just make sure that you have the rights for those. If they're from a company that you were in a program for or something like that, just ensure that it's okay to use that. Or if not, see what the fee is that you need to pay the photographer. Make sure to credit the photographer if possible somewhere on your site for those photos. And then of course, contact information is very important. There have been some emerging artist sites that I've gone to, and I've looked through, and there was literally no way to get in touch with the artist. And you're like, well, and it's not only if they didn't have management or not, it's just there wasn't even a general email address. So make sure, even if it's you can set up a very professional looking email for very low cost associated with your website. It can even be, and we'll use Sienna as an example again, but contact@siennaforest.com. Don't have it be, your middle school Hotmail email address and display that, because that doesn't look very professional. It doesn't look very polished. And you don't necessarily want people to know that this is going to you, even though it's going to you. I mean, most of us know that already if we're seeing something like this, but it's a nice little bit of mystery. So those are sort of the really important pieces to have on a website, but having a website is just key because it is, and I'll say it a million times over, it's one-stop shopping for a casting director. And when you are looking around between 25 to 30 artists, let's say, for one role, and you're sort of gathering things together, and let's say a bunch of colleagues sent you materials and there are these, Dropbox folders and Google Drive folders and all this stuff. Sometimes you just want to go to one spot and find what you need. And that's the most helpful, but just make sure to keep it up to date. If you're fortunate to be working and you have some gigs coming up, please have a schedule on there. Please let us know what you're up to and what you have going on. You never know, somebody may be able to actually go see your show live without you knowing that they're going to be there. But just the more information about you, the better. And on a lot of these template-based sites, because that's probably what you're going to be working with if you haven't had a site before, and if you're doing this on your own, they'll also offer you the opportunity to have social icons. So for a Facebook page, for an Instagram page, for Twitter, YouTube, same thing. If you're on TikTok and you feel cool with sharing your TikTok with the world, all of those things can be linked sort of on icons. It's typically on the bottom of your site, which is called the footer. So the top is the header, bottom is the footer. And usually there will be some kind of navigation menu, but in the footer, a lot of times is where you'll see the social icons, or sometimes in your navigation menu. Those can be put there as well. But if you're going to have icons like that, then you need to have channels. I do know actually of a lot of artists who have their personal sort of private channels, especially on Facebook and Instagram. That's where I see that most commonly. Twitter is almost always public, but that's completely up to you and what you're comfortable with. My recommendation is having sort of a separate social media life for you. That's really for your friends and family. That's a place where your sort of private life lives on social media, and then having a separate professional life for it. The reason I say that is mainly because of safety and privacy. Once you get to be known a little bit, whether it's getting some notice when you're in your master's program or in a young artist program, getting known a bit in the community by various people, starting to get some roles out and about. There are some people out there who may be rooting through your information, and we know this, socials aren't the safest place to be, right? So if you end up putting a lot of personal information out there, let's say like vacation photos on the day that you're in that place, people can track you down and find you. This typically happens, I would say, to some of the really established artists, and there are a lot of people who haven't and don't talk about this publicly for those safety reasons, or because they've had to have, restraining orders and things taken out on people. And hopefully it'll never go that far for anybody on this call. But it really is about protecting you and protecting the people in your life. This is the difference between, again, your public life and your private life. And you have every right as an artist, even though you're up on stage and doing something for the public, doing something for audiences, but you have every right, once that show is over, to go back into your private life and to have that for yourself. And so again, my recommendation is to have separate private channels, especially when it comes to Facebook and even Instagram if you want. Sorry, I just lost my earbud. If you want those channels to be separate, I think that's the best way to roll. There are some artists who only have one of each, and that's fine, but I think you need to just be careful. Be careful about what you show, be careful about what you share. And again, be thoughtful regarding the content that you share on your social channels too. We can get a little bit into quality here. This is sort of the same idea as quality on your website. If you're going to share a photo on your socials, if you're going to share a video clip of yourself singing, make sure it's something you feel really good about, and that you're not just posting it just to post something. I think it's better for an artist to share 2 posts in a month that are really great quality than to share 4 posts in a week and have none of them be great, have a really blurry photo, or to have a video clip with really poor sound quality, or maybe if it's on a day that you didn't feel so great about your singing, like reflux got you the night before, or, you know, new role and you had a little nerves, like make sure what you're putting out there is stuff that you feel really great about, because even if you end up taking it down at some point, once it's out there, it's out there. Anybody can screenshot that. They can, you know, screen capture it. They can share it with somebody else. And so you want to feel really good about what you're putting into the world. So that kind of comes a little bit on that back end of the privacy piece, but also just, you know, you actually have a lot of control in how you present yourself to the world. And I want to talk to a little bit about authenticity on socials. This is a very interesting subject. We'll definitely talk about this at the end in an active conversation, because I want to know who people are interested in and inspired by in the business, and who you follow and who you like to follow. This is an opportunity for you to show really the things about you that make you so unique and special. I mean, that's one of the coolest things about opera, right? All of you sound completely different from each other. You know, none of you are carbon copies. You look different. You are a different presence on stage. You come from different backgrounds. Like, that's one of the best things about this business is, I think, when people aren't trying to be a copy of something else. I love when artists are just truly who they are. And if you can show and share that through your socials, like, all the better. You know, if you want to show a little bit of your personal life on socials in a safe way or a healthy way, or lifestyle content, you know, if you're really into cooking, and that's something that, you know, inspires you, or travel, or your pets. My cat is here, she left, and my dog's in the other room. But I mean, that's stuff that people love to see, and they'll feel like they get to know you a bit more as a package. Regarding the authenticity piece, this comes back to the idea that you shouldn't try to be anyone else. You shouldn't try to be something that you're not. Celebrate who you are. That is, I cannot say this enough. I am far more interested always in artists who clearly are their authentic selves, and celebrate that, and also who celebrate others in what they show and share. Because it's not always about you, dear singer people. There are other things going on in the world. And so if there are things that are important to you and other people that are important to you, share that too. If you volunteer, if there's a nonprofit that you support and you want other people to support, if a friend of yours has like a major jump in and you're super excited for them, like, share something about that. That's great, again, because that's part of you, that's who you are, and that's genuine. There are artists who really like to share sort of highly stylized photos, highly controlled image, and all of that. And if that's who they are sort of in their personal life, great. That's their style, that's their aesthetic. But I am much more interested in people who really are a little more real, let's say. And, you know, there's nothing wrong if you want to edit your photos a bit, or throw a filter over it, or, you know, if you've got to trim your video and you want to share the best part of it, you know, that's fine. That's all choices you can make, again, to present things that you feel confident in and good, that you feel good about. But don't do that don't sacrifice who you are to be something in this business. And that really comes into play too with issues of body image in this business, which, as we know, has been a major issue for a very long time. I'm happy to see, actually, I think that this is one thing I'm very cool with, things moving back more toward how they were in the past. I think some people in this business are starting to get real with the fact that we need to focus on voice and stage presence, and that beauty comes in all shapes, sizes, colors, backgrounds, genders, non-genders. You know, I think we have to be more welcoming. And if you are part of a community, let's say, that's marginalized, but if you feel comfortable with celebrating that fact, and again, celebrating your other colleagues who are part of that family, part of that quilt, again, share that too. Don't ever feel if there will be some people out there that are real haters, that are real trolls. Like if you look on the feeds of the top singers in the world, if you look on their YouTube videos, if you look on, their Instagram posts, you'll see people say crazy shit. People say really crazy, awful shit. And these people are faceless, they are nameless. They probably never in their wildest dreams could get on a stage and do what any of you do. But they feel that because they're behind a computer at home and they have opinions, and everyone has a right to have an opinion, that they have a right to express that very negative and very ugly opinion. So you always have to take the good with the bad in life. And I would say just filter all of that out. If you're sharing stuff just for reactions in the world, that's actually not the reason to share it. Social channels actually have the word social in them. It's supposed to be about connecting with your audience and either your current audience or maybe some people you have yet to connect with yet, but also maybe inspiring some people through what you do. And don't let people try and get in your way with that. If you feel phenomenal in a particular dress and you post a photo and somebody posts a really horrible comment on it and says something about your size or your shape or any of that, that person is not relevant actually to you in your life. That you don't know that person is not standing on stage with you, that person's not in your lessons with you, that person is not your family or your friends. You have to learn to tune some of that out. But I'm very much of the mindset that we need to be more inclusive in this industry in general. And I love actually what I'm seeing sort of from this generation coming up of singers who is pushing back against the bullshit that's been happening in this industry for a very long time. And I just want to encourage all of you to continue to do that. And social media is really a way you can. Again, if there's something you're passionate about, if there's something you think the world needs to know about, that's the place to show and share it. But out of all the channels that exist, most are, I would say, semi-important in the industry. TikTok is super fun and people do crazy stuff on there, and that's great. There aren't a lot of my colleagues, especially in the artistic and casting worlds, who are spending their time on TikTok looking at what people are up to. They may take a peek if you're like a finalist for a resident artist program or something like that. They may want to see what you're up to and if you've got a sense of humor, that kind of thing. But TikTok, not typically. Same goes for Twitter. Facebook is definitely sort of the old-fashioned one in the bunch now. It's been around for a long time. But it's a good place that people can share really long form video content still, or that you can do, live streams fairly easily. Instagram is a place that I see a lot of colleagues going. If they're going to go to one social channel, it's that, because they know they'll probably see a 60-second clip of y'all and they can get an idea of what's going on. And I, in my work at Lenny Studio, when I first started, I was doing website content, and then I moved sort of into the digital media sphere, so social media channels. Now I'm really working exclusively in publicity and special projects. But, I would be logged in to accounts for various artists or organizations, and you'd be surprised at who's looking at whose Instagram stories, who's in leadership level positions at companies around the world. And they're spending time on Instagram. And, that's a place that we can see who's looking, at content. So that's not to say you should spend 24/7 worrying about this stuff or doing this stuff. But again, if you have something good to share or something you feel really good about to share, do that. Just don't spend your entire day scrolling the feeds or, desperately thinking about your next post. It should just be something that's really complementary to what you're doing in your real life, in your real life as a person and also as an artist. But yeah, Instagram, I would say I get asked this sometimes, if I only have one channel that I'm managing, what should it be, or should I duplicate content? Instagram is the main one. I would say without question right now, that's the one where I see colleagues going to more frequently, no question. But you got to have those channels. It's vitally important. So we've kind of gone through the idea of having a website, of having your social channels, of having a YouTube channel set up. there are smaller facets of each of these things also that feed into the bigger picture of who you are as an artist. Some of this has to do with your resume or your CV. If it's out of date, please update that. If it's difficult to read, please fix that. 6-point font is not going to be helpful to a casting director who needs to pull out reading glasses to try and read that information. If possible, a one-page CV is always preferred, but if it's just impossible, move on to the second page or cut out the really old stuff. I don't necessarily need to know about the middle school summer program you did when you were 13. That's not telling me much about where you are today. I want to know what you've been up to maybe the past 4 or 5 years. And Sienna, actually, I have sort of a mock CV template that I'll send you, and if you want, you can share with everybody on here too. But it's just about including sort of the right categories, have the right information. Don't leave anything out. Make sure it's up to date as frequently as you can, so you're not trying to race back through the past 2 years of your life saying, oh my God, who was that coach that I worked with at that program that I really loved? Or I know the panic moments set in. Also photographs. Those are going to play into content on your website, content on your socials, a photo on your CV. This is not an area you should be spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars either, unless you are fortunate enough to, come from a family situation or a lottery winning situation or something where that's just not going to be an issue. There are really incredible photographers who can take great photos of you at a very reasonable price point. And yeah, it may not be something that's going on the cover of Opera News tomorrow. That's not what it's about. We want to see you. And so that's an opportunity too, that yes, you can have sort of your audition suit or dress or whatever your outfit is. But if you maybe want to have a couple photos in clothing that represents a bit more of who you are. I know some artists that actually like design their own clothing and have done some really cool stuff and taken some sort of artistic photos, and that's actually what they used on their website. And it gives an idea sort of like not just who that person is in their day-to-day life, but also it was a little bit reflective of the repertoire they sing, which is interesting. So think about that as well. If you are regularly singing, I don't know, Norina's, but your photos all look like a very dramatic soprano who's maybe in her mid 50s, something's not lining up there. We need to be able to look at you and at least get this idea. And I'm not talking about any of the BS that's existed in the past years. It's more like, I want to look at you and get a sense of, or an aura of. It's not necessarily a particular dress or a particular suit or this or that. It's what's the emotion you're giving in your photographs? Does it match your FOC? Does it match your repertoire? Can I picture you in that role already? And there are some subtle ways you can do this. If you sing Carmen, I don't need to see you in an off-shoulder red dress with a rose in your mouth to imagine you as Carmen. We don't need to go that far, but just subtle things. The use of color, lighting, the location where you have your photos taken, and play around with this a little bit. If you have some friends who are photographers, again, who are doing things reasonably, maybe do some sort of more standard portraiture, but say, hey, could we try something a little bit outside of the box? I want it to reflect this look, or I'm inspired by this photo, and make a mood board, go on Pinterest, be like, these are the 20 photos I'm really inspired by. Could we maybe do something like this? That gives you also a little bit more control over a photo shoot. If you have no idea how you want to look in photos, what you want to wear, what you want the aesthetic to be for the images, talk to the people in your life who would know that and can help you. It's totally okay not to know. Actually, my husband, when he first started with his now teacher, I think he's been studying with him for 11 years now. When he first started with him, my husband came in and I don't know, the typical college dude look that you would expect. He had this huge graphic t-shirts, jeans that fit horribly, I'm sure, really ratty old sneakers, but he didn't have money to go buy some great whole wardrobe. He was working like 3 jobs in grad school, stocking shelves at 5 in the morning, waiting tables, doing all this kind of stuff. But his teacher said there are ways you can do this really on a budget. These are the kind of clothes you can look at. These are the kind of stores you can look at, find stuff on sale, and put a look together. If you have one look or a couple of outfits you can change in and out, it can really serve you well. That can serve you well for travel purposes, but it can also serve you well for your photos. I have seen plenty of artists in looks that they've gotten at thrift stores or secondhand or on Shoperatic, bought from other singers and things like that have looked extraordinary and have looked like they could have just spent thousands of dollars on it. It's how you wear it. But you have to be conscious of this with your photos, because that's another idea that we're getting of you. And the pics need to be high quality too. If you have photos that are blurry, that look like they were taken in 1995, oh, those are really not helping you, and they won't help you on socials either. So, it's a good time, get your photos updated, make sure you keep the photos on your site updated. If you have a photo on your CV, which usually I recommend, so also they can identify you, because sometimes in auditions, things get shuffled around. That's a really great thing to do. So these are all things that can be smaller investments of your time and money, but can have a big payoff in the long run, because they are just giving us the larger idea of who you are as an artist. So invest in yourself in that way. Don't spend too much money, don't spend too much time thinking about all of these things, because it's the vocal technique, the languages, the stage presence, all of that is far more important than any of this will ever be. But if you're doing this right, this stuff that you do here is going to amplify all of that for you and bring it to more people. And I think it's going to make a difference for everybody. So that's kind of the overview, the big list of things. And as I said, I'll allow Sienna, she's more than welcome to share the PDF sort of that I have. That's just a short list. It's a really general list of things you can refer back to, and some buzzwords, some keywords to think about. But it's really fun to just think about these things during this time, because if you still end up with a little downtime, thanks COVID, let's say you have some gigs that go by the wayside or this or that, use this time then really constructively to invest in yourself in this way too, because you're going to come out of it better. And I said this to Sienna when we chatted yesterday, actually, but the artists who have stayed active during this time, not just singing, but finding other things to do, other ways to work on their career, or to create organizations, or to make special projects with their friends and this and that, those all seem to be the artists that are coming through this time better, because they're staying active, they're staying connected, they're staying present. And I think a lot is possible. Just stay real with yourself, stay real with your friends, stay connected to the people who actually care about you and believe in you in this business. And at any time, if anybody has questions outside of anything we covered today too, I have people hit me up on stories every once in a while that they'll just ask me a question if they think it's something that there could be helpful to friends or other people. That's fine. Or I get some DMs or sometimes tweets and things like that. So please, at any time, you can use me as a resource if you have a quick question, and so just say, hey, I was on that oops thing and I did this and it seems like it wasn't right. Is this okay to do? But yeah, that's kind of the big picture, and those are the must-haves, the must-dos to get you ready for whatever this crazy 21-22 season of auditions and gigs, and hopefully all of the things that actually happen will require.
I'm just going to jump in here really fast and say that one of the things that Tina and I have acknowledged is that it's very hard to get recordings, as Jenna also acknowledged. So part of this series, we are saying that if you attend 3 of these or watch the video afterwards of the Oops Proof series, there's a little link that you can do for a survey. And at the end of it, if you've attended 3 of them, we'll enter your name into a drawing. And we'll be picking 2 people for a 90-minute recording session with Carson Rose Schneider in her home. And Oops will be paying for that. So it's just a way to encourage people to attend, and also we want to help people, and this is just one little way that we can start to do that. I'm sure you guys have lots of questions. I know I do, so we'll just open it up. You guys can unmute yourself if you want to ask Jenna a question, and I guess I'll kick things off. And I will say, Jenna, there are so many times that I've drafted something and never posted it because of, I don't know, anxiety, worrying about how it's going to be perceived. How do you suggest overcoming that, or what do you, I guess I don't know what to do to get beyond that. I've like got the whole thing, but I don't hit publish.
Yeah. Um, Firstly, for some people, it's because they don't like writing very much because maybe they're more verbal or like doing things in person. Or I know a lot of artists or introverts who have to masquerade as extroverts to live in this job, to live in this world, to function in this world. Um, I think that idea, it's even something more and different or maybe adjacent to self-confidence, because it's really about wondering if what you're going to post is going to be perceived as okay or liked by people or all of that. And it's a little bit tough to just throw caution to the wind and say, who cares? I'm just going to share it. I think that you can kind of train yourself out of that habit a little bit. And the way to do that is draft the post, check for spelling errors, make sure you're spelling the names of your colleagues or the opera you're singing or the role you're singing or the place you're visiting in the world or the family dish you're making, whatever. Check for that stuff, make sure things are formatted okay. Is the link you're sharing working? Is it the right photo, etc.? Okay, if all that's good and all that's okay, but you're still feeling a little nervous, don't save it as a draft, schedule it. You can schedule it on Facebook and just schedule it for like the next day or 2 days from then or whatever. And if you end up thinking about it again 2 days later and you're like, oh God, oh God, oh God, I hate that post or I don't want to share it. Okay, well, you can always take it down. A lot of times I think you'll forget about it because guess what? You're going to be living your life. You're going to be doing other things. And you know what? The post is going to be scheduled. It's going to show up and it'll be great. And it's not about things getting 200 likes or 20 likes or 2 likes or something. Think more about how you feel about that content first. And if you feel good about that content and say, I want to show this, I want to share this, there's a reason I need to tell this story, I need to update people about this gig I have coming up, something like that, then just get it out into the world, because otherwise you're going to be hesitating. I think that hesitation can carry into a lot of stages of the career, and it'll just hold you back. It'll stop you from sharing really who you are and some cool things about yourself. And I would also advise maybe to take some risks too. Like if there's some content, something you normally wouldn't share, or like a goofy video or this or that, but there's part of you that wants to do it, maybe take a chance. And you know what? If it goes over like a lead balloon and nobody likes it, nobody watches it, it's terrible, whatever, you can always delete it. Or if you really like it, you could just leave it up. I mean, oh my God, worst thing that could happen in the world is somebody shares a social post that doesn't get X number of likes. We have to stop putting so much stock into that. Like, that's not you. That's not who you are as an artist. This is just a channel. It's a conduit to communicate with people in sort of a personal, impersonal way, but it's not everything. So yeah, I would just schedule stuff. And I think some of the times you'll just forget about it and then it'll pop up and then maybe you'll freak out and then just put your phone away for a while and don't think about it. That's part of it too. Don't spend so much time on the device, like reading, rereading, having and hawing over. Schedule it, set down the device and like go for a walk, go listen to your favorite record, go make some food, go call a friend, like get away from this thing. This thing is the most dangerous thing on the face of the planet. I swear to God, these things are as dangerous as many things in life. They can really suck away your time and your energy. So yeah, I would schedule, and then on the far edge of that, post something really different than you normally would and see how that feels. Anybody else? Any questions? Any thoughts or challenges? And it doesn't just have to be about socials, websites, anything else. As I said, I have my hand in a lot of cookie jars, so I'm happy to answer questions about kind of anything.
Um,
living on the
Me.
road. Yeah, Loki.
Yeah, hey. Maybe
Hi.
you've run into this. I'm coming at this from more as a trans artist, but I know that people change their names for other reasons.
Yes.
But I've had to do a lot of like rebranding and resetting up. And so I guess my question is like, how do you do that if someone's changing their name and you're like you want to still, make a connection to that old account or old whatever base you have? Do you put a name in parentheses on something? Do you, I don't know. Thoughts?
Yes. This is an excellent question. Nice to meet you, Loki. Um, I think the best thing to do, because you should really own and celebrate who you are and where you're at in your life and career at this moment, which to me means if you have a dead name account going elsewhere or something, different part of your life, right? I would recommend starting new accounts. And you can actually direct people from those old accounts to the new accounts. You can make just a graphic, a text graphic, go on Canva or something and say, hey, awesome news. This is me. This is where I'm at. Head to, this channel. This is where I'm going to be on Instagram from now on. I hope you'll follow me and support me there. And I look forward to connecting with you, something like that. Make it really easy for them, put the handle, put the link in the post text, all these different kind of things. But I think I actually had a similar question at one point before too from an artist. It was for just a slightly different reason. It was somebody who had been in a very difficult marriage, who had gotten out of the marriage, and the changing of the name. Also, we know name changes in this business are major, right? Like this is when you're known as someone or something, and that idea of change is very difficult. And I know also for trans artists, this is like a whole new world for everybody in this industry. But my feeling as, like a cisgender white lady living in New York who, in a way doesn't have a business speaking about any of this, but at least from the professional capacity, is that you should really leave that behind, because you've left that identity behind. That is not your name. That is not who you are. You are Loki. You are who you are in this moment. You are singing the repertoire you're singing. You are going after whatever type of career you want to go after. And I would just leave it. Get everybody over to where you live now. And it's going to take a little time too, and don't be frustrated by that. You may have had, let's say, 250 followers on Facebook before and 1,000 on Instagram before. And after the first month, you've got, I don't know, a tenth of that on each. Not the worst thing in the world. You can always do kind of refollow activities where you go and follow some more pages, and hopefully they'll follow you back and you get some of that going. But I think it's more important for you to be able to feel good about your presence. And to me, that dead name is dead weight. So I would move everything over. Same goes if you've got a website. Like I wouldn't worry about putting things in parentheses or even on CVs and this and that. You don't owe anybody anything in that capacity. You don't need to justify any of that. You are you. I'm just meeting you now. You're Loki. That's how I should be meeting you. And I hope that kind of answers the question, at least as what I would advise someone to do.
Yeah. Can I ask one more follow-up? It's not
Sure.
directly related. So how do you feel about putting imperfect videos out there? So I'm mid-transition. I'm 14 months into testosterone. I don't have anywhere like the control I had before.
Yes.
Right. So everything's brand new. Like I was a caller to a soprano before, like Queen of the Night, and now it's like, nope,
I'm not hearing
obviously
that
not.
in that speaky voice. Oh my goodness.
No,
All right.
not anymore. But
Wow.
I created a channel, and I guess my question is, should I try to keep it more separate from like a regular performance channel? Because basically, I created a channel to be like, I want to show this. I want to be like me as an artist. I had so many fears about going on testosterone especially as a singer, and there's not a lot of info out there. So I have a channel where it's like they're very imperfect videos. It's like crack and it's a mess because that's really important. So yeah, I guess my question is just, should I keep that really separated? Should I worry about that? Because I think about that sometimes. I'm like, people are gonna Google me and they're gonna be like, wow, look at this mess. But also it's
Good for
me.
you.
I don't know.
I wish more artists in general would own the tough times, because anybody who goes on YouTube, you can look up and you'll find videos of Pavarotti cracking and being booed by the way. Let's go down the list, everybody. some of your most favorite singers of all times have had really shitty nights. Okay. You are not robots. You're not machines. You can't replicate something from night to night. That's another beautiful thing about this art form, is that it's different every night. Everything is changed. I would maybe sort of go somewhere in the middle on that. First of all, I think all that content is incredible, and I can't wait to go watch and learn more from you about this transition in her life, and also vocally, because I know it's just from an ancillary perspective, it's challenging. And I've talked with some teachers and coaches about this before, and I know it requires a different level of support and a different type of training. People need to know about this. People need to talk about this. If you don't want that transition aspect to be your whole story in this moment for you as an artist, so you've got your, let's say, existing artist channel, and then you've got your channels where you're really talking about this, where you're really addressing this process for you. Maybe a way to sort of bring that and meet in the middle is on this artist channel. Every once in a while, you should direct people the other way and say, hey, by the way, I'm going through this. I want to be very open about this process in hopes that it will help some others as well. This is where you can find it. And look, those videos, as you said, there's no way you're going to be able to avoid that. Your voice, of course, your voice is going to break. You're changing from a coloratura soprano to what's your goal repertoire? Like where do you want to be living?
Oh, well, goal is a funny word. I feel like there's really no telling where people end up in totally different places on T. I'm probably sitting in a tenor-ish range right now.
Okay. Tenor-ish. And are you working like mostly on technique or some with repertoire too? Like what does it look like for you?
I mean, most of my focus is on warm-ups and technique and getting to know it. I mean, I've submitted for a couple auditions recently, and it was terrifying, and the videos are not ideal, but I kind of was like, you know what? I think it's important theaters get more trans voices in their inbox. So
Question. No question. No, I would, if I were in your shoes or advising, a friend or a client who's feeling the same way, thinking the same thing, I think it's good to have this, because again, this is process, right? This is at some point you're going to be, I mean, every day you're probably feeling and sounding different, which is probably wild. But at some point, this process is going to be more or less complete, at least in the phase of getting you through the transition vocally to whatever sort of your established FOC is going to be. And so this is going to be more of what people see, but this is like a hugely important reference point. So I would, like, once in a while, share a clip, share a post, and maybe be unafraid about it. When I say that you want the best quality videos and photos and everything as possible, that's when you're presenting them as that. If you are saying, hey, everybody, this is what it's like when, things, I'm getting used to this like new voice basically and all that. If you're putting it in context, that's totally okay. The challenge comes when somebody shares something that maybe they're feeling enthusiastic about, maybe their teacher's not feeling so enthusiastic about or something. And they're like, this is the best I've ever done and blah, blah, blah. And that's the context they put it in, and they put it out there, and it's like, oh my God, this is really not going to help them. This is different. What we're talking about is different. So if you can contextualize it for us, for all of us who would be listening to and watching that, I think that's going to be extremely helpful for you. But we need more trans voices in the business on stage, but also just voices in general, talking about this art form, talking about what's possible in this art form. I think there are a lot of really great possibilities for trans artists that are only just starting to emerge. We're seeing the possibilities. So yeah, I highly encourage you, like, own it, show it, share it, and maybe there's that way that sometimes you can, bring people from here over to here and vice versa. Make sure to bring anybody who's really following you on your journey and supporting you on your journey. Make sure that when you're out there then singing some gigs or doing a competition or something, like, they should know you have that going on. So you can sort of bring that all together. And then eventually this could be a really important and major reference point, I think, for artists going through that. And I really applaud you for being so open. It's got to be scary as hell sometimes. But it's really cool. And just know too, like, artists who haven't gone through transitions in that way have gone through other transitions vocally. Like, my husband sang as a baritone for 8 years. He was a misdiagnosed baritone. And it really probably kept him from getting a lot of opportunities and all these things. He really struggled like through college, like he was tired at the end of voice lessons, all this stuff. And he switched to tenor. And I know when he made the change, he had a major audition for the Marilla Opera program, I think like 8 weeks into his change from baritone to tenor. And he walked in and he was like, I can sing forte and fortissimo. That's basically like all he had to offer, but it's what he had to offer. And he was really open about it and he got in. And I think he was shocked as hell about that, but also he was just honest about it. And I think sometimes those of us in business that can see maybe where somebody's going, that's okay. Like be upfront with us on that. Be like, you know, if it's a newer role for you, of course, nobody wants to hear like, oh, I just started learning this aria 2 days ago. Yeah, like, oh my God. But if you are on a journey, if you are on a transition Fock wise or something like that, that help us. It's kind of like contextualizing in the post, contextualize yourself as well. Contextualize what's happening with your voice if and when you can, because then we'll be able to better serve you as advocates in this industry and hopefully can give you the best opportunities possible. Yeah, so that's that. Any other, if you have other questions on that, I'm happy to answer.
No, thank you. That's great.
You're welcome.
It's good to have these conversations out loud in these circles. It just feels useful because it's nerve-wracking to think about, and I don't know. I guess it's hard to know what anyone else is thinking, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's wild, and yeah, from coloratura soprano to tenor for now, TBD. We'll be watching your journey, but I can't wait to see all of that. And thanks for making that resource. That's really important, not just for your peers to see, but also those of us who are really on the admin side, because we need to know more about that. And boy, do a lot more teachers and coaches need to know how to help artists through any transition, whether you're transitioning and you're on hormones and all of that, and you're on that journey, whether you're changing Fox and you're on that journey. If you're a woman going through a hormonal change like menopause or this or that, like there's just so at pregnancy, you know, health scares, cancer, this, that, like all of it requires a different approach for your voice, for your body, for your mind and your spirit. And not for nothing too, if you don't already have these things in your life, make sure you have like a teacher you feel great about and who's there for you and giving you a technique that's actually serving you healthfully. And, you know, hopefully someday a great manager who will do all these things, and a great therapist, please, everybody. Vitally important. However you need to make it happen, free community services, if you have healthcare, whatever, please, 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 please take care of yourselves in that way, mentally, vocally, physically. And all things. Okay, anybody else? Any other questions? Yes, Victoria.
Yeah, do you have some ways to direct us in terms of, I just feel with website building, like I just feel so daunted by it. And like I recently had like a consultation with somebody that actually builds websites for a lot of opera singers, and it was just like I would love to have them just custom do it, but it's like too expensive for my tiny little artist budget that I'm at.
Yes.
So it's just like, I don't know where, I feel overwhelmed, I guess, with the process of where to start.
Okay, so this is great because Christina just posted there's going to be a website building seminar August 24th, so stay tuned for that. It can be really intimidating, especially if it's something you haven't done before or don't necessarily have a particular interest in. I think all of you probably on this call have interests and experience in other areas, not just singing, but y'all have different talents, different skill sets. Websites are a little crazy. The best thing that you can do, especially if you're going to be doing this on your own to start, and again, I advise that for pretty much everybody, unless for budgetary reasons, you're able to do something different. If you're doing this on your own to start, set some realistic goals for yourself. You can actually, if you like lists and if you like timelines, that's probably helpful. If not, that's okay too. It can be really rough, but have a list of what you even need for the website first. Like, okay, I don't even have any photographs. Okay, let me get photos together. Like I need to write that photographer and buy those couple of photos. Oh, I haven't uploaded my videos yet to YouTube. Okay, I need to do this. Like make the list of what you need to get together content wise, your CV, your bio, you know, anything like that. Okay, have the content already. That's something you can control, and that's something you don't need any experience to do. You could literally gather that content, have it ready. Okay, then the next step is decide what platform you want to go with, what you think might be the most user friendly for you. And again, there are a lot of them. I know artists that do sites on Wix, Squarespace, all of that. The free to freemium options all have limitations. I'll just put that out there. There's a reason why at some point artists like call us at Lenny Studio and they're like, I don't want to deal with this crap anymore. And please God, can you make something that looks exactly how I want it to look? And can you guys just manage it? Because I don't want to touch it. Great, fine. But until that point, see if there's a platform that works well for you. And for you, knowing that it's a little bit intimidating, I think the process is going to be more important almost than the look and feel. There are great tutorial videos from these platforms on the basics. Watch tutorials from a few different platforms, and you'll know pretty quickly what is going to resonate with you and what's not, and what you're going to be able to maintain and manage and what you're not. If something seems really kind of over the top and like, oh my God, this is complicated, it's going to add more stress to my life, that's not the one for you. Find the one that seems the most user-friendly to you, because it's likely you'll be able to find a format and a look that gets you somewhere close to where you want to be. Your first website is not going to be like the most incredible custom phenomenal thing in the world, probably, and that's totally okay. As I said, it's more about just having the one-stop shop, having everything easy to read, easy to access. Brian made his first website himself on iWeb back in the day. I mean, iWeb, this doesn't exist anymore. And then after that, he actually hired Lenny's Studio to make his first website. This was before I was ever in his life. It was as he was just sort of starting to get established in a career where he had like a full season of good work. He was an Adler still, but he was like a third-year Adler, but he was working. He was basically working during that time. But he waited. I mean, he was making his own stuff, updating his own things over time, and you absolutely can do it. So take the intimidation factor out of it. Be like, what can I, like anything in life, what do I actually have control over? I can gather my content, I can do the research, and then I can pick a platform that works for me, get it started, and just know that at the end of the day, if for some reason 6 months down the line, a year down the line, you're like, God, I hate this site or this platform is annoying, you can always move that domain name to another platform. And there are some user-friendly ways to do that. So once you have your domain name set and it's on Wix or Squares, like it's going to be hosted somewhere actually. So it you may host through like HostGator, but your site is on Wix. You can go to another platform. You can migrate that site eventually if you need to. So just know you're not like permanently married to a platform when you build that site. Does that help? I hope a little bit. Okay, excellent. I see a question here on the chat too. Okay, since Tina's in a room with a ton of people, what's the biggest difference I noticed between pro websites versus amateur DIY websites built from scratch using HTML, CSS? Are there any glaring design problems you see? Yes. Yeah. Functionality, number one. If I go to click on something on your website and it doesn't actually work, or your navigation menu doesn't work, or let's say your photos are really tiny for some reason, but then there's one photo that's huge, and things are inconsistent, make sure it's as uniform as possible. Again, even if you're using a free or freemium option, make sure the text sizes are the same where they need to be the same, or that you have sort of a hierarchy of like headers and then body text, header, body text. But functionality really is key. If I can't scroll down on your website, or if I'm trying to click on a video, but the video is not actually embedded, it's just a screenshot and not linked to anything or something, I mean, oh my God, just make sure everything works. That would be the first piece. If it all works, great. Then the next piece is, does it look as good as it can look? Do I have those nice quality photos on there? Am I, again, having sort of a hierarchy of information that's easy to read, that's not too tiny, but also not crazy large? Great. And with templates, you can sort of work within that. Of course, when you have a custom design site, there are a lot of other options and opportunities. You can play around with different design elements. You can really make it reflect the artist themselves. I mean, at Lenny's, we actually almost exclusively build custom sites because it's just, we don't want anybody having the same site as the next person. We want it to really feel individually like that person. We do have like a template based option that we do, that's a template we created. But the difference you'll see again is going to be those really specific elements, like Joyce DiDonato's website, for example. Joyce had a lot of say in that. Joyce is a very artistic person. Joyce is a very worldly person and reflective person. And there are little touches on that site that maybe wouldn't be obvious right away, but that are truly visually reflective of Joyce and who she is and how she is as an artist. I mean, you know, you can go down the list and it's sort of the same for everybody else. So I would say, yeah, those custom pieces, that's probably what's going to be missing. And, you know, a lot of those sites are multi-page sites. So then, you know, you're clicking into different pages. You may have different functionality, maybe a more robust media players, you know, more robust photo galleries, all of that kind of stuff. But you can still get the basics, really the basics you need on a free or freemium site. And then at a certain point, yeah, you'll outgrow that. I hope you'll outgrow that. That's a great sign. You know, once that happens, call us then. But until now, you know, do the low cost, reasonable thing. And if your photos look great, if you feel great about your photos and they're interesting, you can even coordinate the color palette of the site a little bit with some of those pictures. And that will help you. So Tina, I hope that helps. If there's a second part on that question, shout me. Okay, sounds good. Okay, we've got another one. Amy Wolf, do you have any other advice for a singer in their 40s asking for a friend? Love it. I love the last name. Yes, because not everybody in sort of, let's say, an emerging or on their way into interesting places in this business is 26. Some people have really wild things happen later in their career. Actually, there is a soprano I know we made a website for. Her name is Maida Hundeling. She's a dramatic soprano. And I first met Maida because she was singing The Foreign Princess in Rusalka with my husband in Houston. But Maida had sung in some regional houses in the US and smaller houses in Europe. And when I first heard her sing, I thought, oh my God, I mean, the voice is like a siren. It's just massive. It's beautiful. It's huge. It's just a huge voice. And I thought, oh my God, how have I never heard her before? How have I never heard this lady before? And she's not 26. And, you know, she's had some opportunities along the way. And I've been sort of watching, and we had this sort of chance meeting, you know, in Houston. And she said, I want to make more of a presence for myself. And she started in that place. And she said, I'm going to get some new photos. I want to make a website. You know, I feel like I'm singing really well. And there's no straight path on this business. There's no one way to do this, especially when you're, you know, in your 40s or even in your 50s, kind of coming out into a career. I mean, Maida now is singing Arena de Verona now and making her debut there, and she's debuted in Palermo, and all these other things are like happening in Covent Garden, and it's just really wild. But it doesn't always happen overnight for people, and it doesn't even always happen in the first decade or two, and it's got to be, I think it's frustrating and challenging. I would say, and this is maybe valid at any decade, be who you are, own your repertoire. Don't be shy about your age. Also, don't be shy about applying for things that don't have age requirements. Sienna had mentioned earlier, I'm a co-founder of an organization called Opera for Peace, and we have a group of our emerging artists, and a lot of the emerging artists are in their sort of late 20s, early 30s, right? Well, we have one who's in their late 30s, which you would never think of in like an emerging artist program or something like that. But this person, we felt really strongly, this voice has got to be heard. We're going to help them. We're getting opportunities for this person, like it's happening. They didn't let their age sort of stop them from reaching out to us and just thanking us for something that we did. And we went to watch videos and we're like, oh my God. And age, it's funny, age was never a consideration for me. I thought about it really late in researching this person. because it didn't play into it. And I think age sometimes stops us from various things. I'll bring up a Brian story again, just because obviously I know them better than anyone, but he was in a competition, a big international competition, and made it to, I think, maybe the semifinals or quarterfinals, something like that, and was sick and had the option to just keep going and sing through it or go home. But he knew if he went home, it would be his last chance for this competition, because he was going to age out, right? The next time that he could actually do it, he was going to be aged out. But he knew, he's like, I'm not going to give my best performance. I need to go. And they ended up later changing the age requirement, sort of, I think, because he was a little bit pushy about it, and maybe others were too. But I think in general, we need to start making more of a fuss about this in the industry. And I'm so interested in this question, because age is not necessarily reflective of a place in a career. There are people who maybe came to singing much later in life, or were singing in a different FOC for a decade, and they're basically starting completely over. Or, in Loki's case, going through a major transition in literally every way. So I think it's finding those spaces and places and people who are not so married to the idea of this. And I think there are maybe a couple, but see what competitions are out there that don't have age requirements. Reach out to some organizations, and if there's something you really want to do, or a program you really want to be part of, there's nothing that says you can't reach out to them and say, I know you have X age requirement, but this is my story. The worst they're going to do is not reply. The second worst they're going to do is say no, but at least they've seen your name and they know who you are. You may get a like, maybe, or something, but I actually find that really interesting when people maybe don't let the existing rules stop them from trying. But I'm really glad you brought this up, because it helps me too to continue to be more conscious of this in the world, because for many people, life in a major way begins at 40 or 50 vocally. And I think we have to be more supportive of that too. But if you see restrictions around, see if you can find a way to bust through them. Ask the people, and you might be really surprised, because we had that happen actually at Opera for Peace with this artist who, if they had said their age up front, or if they really made an assumption that we weren't going to do something for them because they didn't fit into some sort of narrow age bracket, they never would have contacted us. But they didn't let that stop them, and now they're going to be doing, I've already done, and are going to be doing some more very cool things. So yeah, brava, good on you. And Amy, what's your what's your FOC, what's your repertoire, what's your story?
Oh my God, I feel like I've been all over the place, but I ended up staying here because I got married and I have 2 kids, and I started out like, light lyric coloratura. Then as I got older, one teacher thought I was more spinto, and then I went back to another teacher and they're like, no, you're a light lyric. So in a way, even though I'm in my 40s, I always feel lost. Like, I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to be singing half of the time. And like,
Yeah,
that I like, they're like, you have some people saying no, and other people are like, why aren't you singing that? So I've just always been confused. If that makes sense. And
yeah,
to hear what you're saying, because I do get frustrated, because I feel like I'm singing the best I've ever sung, because I've just studied forever, and I keep studying. I keep, trying to do as much as I can around here. But mentally, I think I'm like, do I have to just like, hang it up? Like, I'm already writing myself off, because I feel like there really aren't. I'm gonna get all weepy. Like,
that's okay. This is a safe space, and it's being recorded, but it's really a safe space still. I think.
Yeah, I feel like any opportunity that I had to maybe go a step further is like, I feel like I might be delusional, like it's just never gonna happen. So I should just like.
Yeah, you're not the only one that's thought and felt those things. I can guarantee that in this business. That's okay. That's okay. No, you're not the only one. And if you're feeling like you're singing the best you've ever sung, like, don't stop. Don't step away. Actually use that as fuel to push you further into this, because kind of what I was saying about us needing more voices on the stage and off the stage from the trans community, as we were talking to Loki, I feel the same goes for artists who have lived into more of their lives and maybe have more indifferent things to say because they've had other experiences and because this hasn't come to them as easy. And something I would recommend and suggest to everybody on this call in general too, is that you may have yet to be unknown advocates out there. If there is an artist or some artists or a teacher or a coach or a conductor, somebody in the industry who you really like and admire and respect their artistry, and they don't have to be in your flock, even like it can be somebody you're just like, man, that person can sing, you know, like, oh my God, I know that technique is so lined up, or oh my God, they always make me cry when they sing this role, or write to that person, write those people. Most artists that I know are always happy to find 20 or 30 minutes to connect with, to listen to really speak with other singers who maybe need some advice, some guidance, maybe some connections, maybe having an outside person, like not your existing teacher, not your existing coach, but like, again, somebody that's out of your immediate sphere, especially when you've had some, like, we'll call it like flock confusion. And that's really tough when you have somebody saying you're this and then you're this and you're like, what the hell am I? I would say also, in addition to like, you know, requirement is this, but hey, this is me front, or hey, they don't have an age requirement, I'm going to apply for this, or I'm going to do this. In addition to that, like, who are people that you like and admire in the industry, whose input, insight, you know, any of that you would value, both on maybe this path, you know, in your career at this point, but also vocally. Even a lot of people will be happy if an artist contacts them. They'll find a way to make that 20-30 minutes of their time to just hear somebody and give them some really practical advice. I've seen a lot of artists do this. There are some who won't, right? And we may not always know who they are, and it may be for various reasons. They might just be overscheduled. They may be super, super introverted to the point that they can't do any of this kind of stuff. Totally fine, whatever that is. But I would say actually it's more often than not that artists would be happy to do that for another artist, especially knowing your story. So if I were you, like, if you've got some people that, you know, they're the ones you follow, they're the ones you really love listening to, love watching, feel inspired by, reach out to them, see if they'll listen to you, see if they'll talk with you, you know, tell them who you are, tell them where you're at. And I don't know, you never know. Sometimes people can hear something. I'm thinking of all the people that I've heard now, even just in the past year and a half, that I've been able to give opportunities to, that it's really it's fulfilling for me to do that. And so I have to imagine for anybody in the industry that that's got to be fulfilling too as an artist. I mean, Brian had a young singer write him who was in a program he was teaching masterclasses for, who's been having some major struggles. This artist didn't sing in his class, observed it, but went through another program, has had health struggles, all this stuff. And they just wrote and said, would you mind listening to me for a little bit and talking to me? And Brian said, sure, you know, we can do this for 30 minutes. And I think he ended up spending an hour with the person just because he knows they're struggling. And, you know, he always does a thing where, like, a first lesson, any of that kind of stuff is free. I know a lot of other artists that do the same thing because they feel fortunate that they're able to work and they want to give that back to people. So yeah, if you're feeling great about your singing, don't stop. Like, the only one that's going to stop you at this point is yourself. And don't be your enemy in this. Don't be your own worst enemy. And I know when you're a mom and you've got kids and you're trying to balance everybody else's needs and wants with yours, but like, this is who you are. You're a singer, right? This is part of you. So you have to exercise that part of you regularly and take it as far as it'll go. And I don't think you've hit the limit yet, because if you hit the limit, you would have already stopped and you wouldn't be singing the best you've ever sung. So anything's possible. but it's really, I'm glad you brought this up, because as I said, it's great for me to also think about all these things and bring all of these thoughts back to my other colleagues in the business too, and how we think about. I really hate this chronological age garbage regarding programs, competitions, everything else, because again, everybody's in different phases. To me, I wouldn't mind hearing a 32-year-old next to a 50-year-old if they just happen to be on the same development point in their career, because the 50-year-old was singing in a different flock for 12 years or something. So yeah, keep going. And I know there's still like probably tough days ahead, but if you're feeling great about the singing, that means something's there. Sorry, long roundabout thing. Yes, Victoria.
Who needs to hear?
I have one last question. When this deals with social media, and I guess this also kind of connects to what you were just talking about, and kind of what social media can bring. If people like reach out to you, or you notice you start getting opera companies that start following your like Instagram account, things like that. I mean, is there like something that we should be doing to like connect with them? Or I just feel like that's a huge missed opportunity. Like, and that's what happens when you start putting yourself out there. But I just like feel at a loss for like, should it be doing something with that if that
That's a great
happens?
question. Actually, that's a great question. So of course, if an opera company starts following you, if you're not already following them, follow them back. It's good to know what they're up to. Good to know if you see they're doing things that you like their posts, that's great. Keep in mind that most people running those accounts are not the ones that are going to cast you in jobs or programs or anything else. Almost all of the time, unless it's a really, or once in a while, like there are random heads of companies who have the keys to the social castle, which I find a little bit bizarre, because it's like, don't you have another job that you're supposed to be doing? Anyway, but I wouldn't think too long and hard on that, because again, most of the people that are running those accounts aren't having something to do with that. However, you never know, somebody may be following you from that, and at some point may see a video or something, and they could absolutely show and share that with a colleague and say, hey, like, check out this singer that we follow, like, oh my God, they're amazing, or something. That could happen. It's just, I think, a lot less likely than anything else. So the only time that you may want to take something a step further is, and this is a blanket statement, this is about anytime, if you have an audition for a program or a project or anything, sort of a special lesson or coaching session, like a one-off with somebody who's sort of established in the business, or you're part of a master class with somebody, always write that person a thank you note. Write them a thank you note. Thank them for their time. Thank them for their encouragement. Be specific. You know, if you know that you were like one of 27 singers singing that day in the masterclass, be like, you know, hi, this is Victoria. I sang blah, blah, blah for you in the masterclass. Thank you so much. I really appreciate, you know. And if it's somebody you really made a connection with, or you feel they talk to you about being supportive of you in your career, you have to pursue that through and with them, because they are not going to have the time or energy to come like find you and track you down and mentor you and help you in that way. It's just not possible for people. So please, everybody, like, if you come in contact with somebody like that who could be influential in your career, inspirational, mentor you, maybe has connections, and don't do it to the point that you're clearly seeking out connections, because that's not going to be the commonplace thing to happen. It's more part of being gracious and appreciative of their time. And you just never know when you might see them again. This business is so damn small. I mean, look at me and Sienna, like, we met a long time ago when we were in, you know, very different situations than we are in our lives now. And, you know, that's the kicker. Oh, great networking seminar. Yes. I saw that was coming up too, with fabulous guest. So yeah, make sure to be thankful, be communicative, you know, not to the point that you're writing people like every other day. Did you listen to my aria? Did you, it's no. Just thank them, be genuine. Make sure to, if you're sending a thank you email, under your signature, have a link to that website. You know, have a link to your YouTube page, because if that person says, oh, I remember that artist, they might click through. You never know, they might think of something you could be perfect for, and it could change things. I don't know. I don't rule out those chances. You have to give people opportunities to be your best advocate. But it really should just come from that place of being gracious and respectful. That's a little bit of the old-fashioned thing that I think is never a bad thing to get rid of in the business. So that's my 2 cents. I think socials, again, most of the people on those are not the decision makers when it comes to anything that's going to impact your career. There are other ways to do that and connect with people in that way. Anything else?
Can you
We've
talk
covered a lot.
bit about hashtags? I'm just
Yeah.
Yes, I'll just leave it there. Hashtags help.
Yeah, hashtags. First of all, I never recommend linking your Facebook and Instagram pages, because the posts for Instagram tend to look very different format wise than for Facebook. And as we know, like clickable links in Facebook don't necessarily work here. The tags don't always carry over X, Y, and Z. So I recommend keeping those separate. So talking about formatting, you know, you almost never really should put hashtags in a Facebook post, because nobody's really searching those on Facebook. Hashtags on Twitter get searched sometimes, so maybe you can have a few. Instagram, yes, that's hashtag city. You can have hashtags in your post caption. You can also do a comment on the post with even more hashtags. If you don't want to have the hashtags displaying in your post, you can actually do it that way, because it still connects to the post actually when people search it. So if you want to bury the hashtags a little bit, just put them in there as a comment. I think it's good to have a mix of, let's say, a handful of tried and true, sort of on the nose, like, you know, if it's opera, classical music, I don't know the country you're singing or living in, city, you know, there are a lot of these like most search things, or travel and all of that kind of stuff. Then you can sometimes get silly with it and come up with ones on your own. And it's not because that's actually going to get you anybody on the searches. It's just because maybe it'll make you laugh, or it feels more personalized. But you know, I would say don't go overboard on the hashtags. What I don't love is when I see a post that like every other word is a hashtag. That for me is just like too much going on. You know, you can pepper in a few hashtags in the post, or a few tags, whatever you need to do, but save the hashtags for either the bottom of your post or the bottom and comment. That's fine. But yeah, I wouldn't use too many generic hashtags in general, at least at the first part of the tag listing, because then it's also going to seem a little bit unrelated to whatever you're sharing. So it's just about a balance. But yeah, I would do a handful of general ones. You know, you can do your name, and then maybe do some things that are a little bit more fun, and you can see what works. You can hop around, you know, you can search tags, see what's really popular, see what's most searched, most liked, most, you know, it's pretty easy to find that stuff out. And if you want, you can throw a couple of those related ones in there too. Yeah. Anything else? We really covered a lot, I think, tonight. Awesome. Oh, Tina may be typing. So I'm going to give Tina the opportunity to type. Business cards. Ah, business cards. I'm of 2 minds about business cards. I think they can be helpful in various areas of the industry, especially if you're interacting with people from slightly, let's say, older generations. Like I noticed people in their maybe 70s, 80s, you know, still, and there are people still working in this industry at that age. Thank you. All the way up. They tend to like something tangible and all of that. I would say in general, I see almost no one handing business cards around anymore, because a lot of times they just get tossed. Something I have started, I'm trying to be better about this when I meet people in person. And this happens a lot in New York. I live in New York City, so there's a lot of interfacing. Are you on Insta? Are you on, if it's like a more formalized professional thing, we do LinkedIn a bit on the admin side. I'm not the world's biggest LinkedIn fan, but we do that. But are you on Insta? I'll follow you, or let me send you an email right now. And I literally email people in that moment, or I add their contact in my phone in that moment. If it's somebody who we would connect with in that way, I do it ASAP, because again, with business cards, it's really easy for them to get tossed in the bottom of a purse or in a pocket that gets washed in the washing machine, or and they never see the light of day again. Yeah, I think business cards are a little bit in that way on their way out. I don't see many singers handing them around anymore. I do sometimes still see singers attaching them to like their resumes and CVs, but that's information that you can just put on the resume and CV, your phone number, your email address, your website URL, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think even though I do think they can be helpful in some capacity, if I were going to pick one or the other, I would say no business cards. If you meet somebody, if you connect with them, if ask if they're on Insta, or start follow back, or say, I'd love to email you. What's your email address? I'll email you right now. Do it in the moment. That's my recommendation. That's a very New York approach. That's what we're doing out here. I'm from the Midwest, so this is all new. Anybody else?
Okay, one last thing.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, that's okay.
Okay. What would you say is the importance of posting like stories versus like a regular post? And then sometimes I see some people's Instagram account page where it's like very nicely curated, where it's like they have the nice little icons of all the little stories. And mine's not anywhere near that, but I do post stories quite often. I don't know. What's your take on that?
That I think that just depends on you and your reflect. I mean, stories are great because they could just be in the moment. More, I think, lifestyle content in general, like stuff that's more casual and everything, it works really well on stories, or funny things or things you like, and all of that. Nobody needs to spam anybody's feeds. I mean, nobody needs to be sharing posts on Instagram 5 times a day. Like, even if you're doing, maybe, unless, I don't know, unless you're like winning a Grammy award or something, and really you're going to share like multiple posts through the day of everything that's happening, like maybe that day. But other than that, nobody needs to see that. I mean, I think in general, in a quieter time, in your life and career, 1 to 2 posts a week around is fine. Let's say it's a busier time, you're really in rehearsals, a lot's going on, maybe you're getting more to like 3 to 4 posts a week, but there's not a prescription for that. It's really about what you have energy for, what you have time for, and the stories are quicker and easier. So, just make sure that, your last post wasn't from like February, but you're posting stories every day. Like at least just every once in a while, get something fresh up there. So if people go to look, it's not ancient content. Yeah. Okay.
If there aren't any more questions, I want to thank you so much, Jenna, for meeting with us today and helping us talk through all of this stuff. And as you guys are going through this process of figuring out who you are as an artist and how you want to present yourself, I'd like you to direct you back to the artist statement seminar that we had with Pablo Siqueiros. That was our first event. The video is on YouTube. You can get it through our website, the Oops Proof, oopsmn.org/oopsproof. That's a great place to start. He asks really wonderful questions so that you can put into words who you are, what you do, and why you do it. And next week, we have a seminar with Danielle St. Germain, which is on networking.
She's awesome, everybody. Danielle is a party. She's a great lady.
She's fantastic and hilarious. And we went to the same high school together, and we grew up in the same town in Massachusetts, which, like, small world. We actually met at a party randomly one night in Minneapolis, and we're like, oh my gosh, Ursuline. And then we also have a masterclass with Adriana Zabala. If you'd like to sign up to participate in that, we're still accepting applications. And yeah, those are the big things that we have coming up. Thank you guys for joining us. If you think of any friends, singers that you think would benefit from this class, we'll be posting it on YouTube. feel free to send that out. And in the meantime, if there's any topics that you'd like to see addressed in future seminars or artists you'd like to work with in masterclasses, just send Tina and I an email and we'll be happy to set that up. Thank you guys so much. And Jenna, thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll be sending out
Of
a
course,
survey
my
link.
pleasure.
We'll send out a survey link. Make sure you submit it so that you'll be entered into the drawing for a free recording session. And I think that's everything. Usually Tina's helping.
Awesome. No, thank you, Sienna, and thanks, Tina, and for having this wonderful organization. And I hope lots of people will continue to support it and participate. And I hope all of you will continue to support each other.